couldn't be answered because they wanted to produce this interference with the ability to concentrate, the ability to sleep, the ability to think, which were aspects of the radiofrequency sickness syndrome, which they defined previously under experimental conditions. And they succeeded not only in doing it, but they succeeded in getting the U.S. leading epidemiologists to document it and then ignored it.
What is adequate evidence for decision making? Well, it depends on who you are. For the scientist, in order to come up with conclusive scientific evidence, which is a very high standard of evidence, we're looking at almost 100% certainty that an effect occurs. But is this the right forum, and is this the right level of evidence that we need to make good decisions if we are a city or county that is mandated to protect public health and safety under the state zoning codes? We don't need that much evidence at all, do we? Now, the legal standard may be something down here. Maybe we only have to be about 51% certain, the more likely than not test. But we take action with less information and with less certainty. Now, under the California Environmental Quality Act, all we have to have is the potential for a significant impact, don't we? Anytime you see an environmental impact report, we're not looking for certainty of effect. 10 to 30% certainty is enough to take an action that is protective of public health. This is where we're operating when we talk about public decision making for cell siting, not over here. Do we have enough scientific evidence to be 10 to 30% certain that we may have an effect, and should we be careful? And do we do that for every other environmental constraint? You bet we do.
Radio frequency exposures began during the Second World War with the introduction of radar. The people who were exposed were mostly soldiers, some people in industry that were making products that were sold to the Army and Air Force. And the evidence that was accumulated showed evidence of effects on blood counts, evidence of effect on mutation and cellular reproduction, cataract in the eye, occurrence of headache and fatigue, and some increase in cancer. This occurred within a few decades of the discovery of radar, and the data were not very widely disseminated, and partly that's because people weren't concerned about what might happen in 25 years to technicians who were exposed at that time. They were fighting a war. And part of the problems that we have today derives from that rather realistic but not very sensitive preoccupation.
The United States permits some of the greatest levels of exposure to the human populations in the world. If you compare those standards to other countries in Europe and China and Russia, you will note that the standards are much lower. They're all looking at the same science base. So why is there such a difference?
The spectrum goes all the way from extra low frequency, 60 hertz power fields that give us electricity, all the way up through radio waves, microwaves, and the communication frequencies, and then on over into the visible light, and then further than that, we're into ionizing radiation or X-rays and gamma rays. And in the old days, we used to think only the ionizing radiation part of the spectrum was carcinogenic or had the potential to cause cancer. Well, we're finding that was maybe too arbitrary a delineation, and now we're seeing that we may have carcinogenic effects down in the lower frequency ranges. And we're talking about power, and we're talking about communication, wireless communication.
I moved out of California up to Washington State after Dynasty because I wanted some fresh air. I wanted to live where they had clean water, and I just liked the whole environmental state of Washington. I really love it up there. I'm very happy. But I've had some interesting experiences since I've moved up there. They're going to put up a cell tower right near our house, like less than half a mile. It's going to be loaded with unlimited whips and antennas. Now, 300 feet and the extra 15 are for the whips and antennas, is 40 feet less than the Space Needle in Seattle. This is not exactly something we're going to be able to ignore. How is this possible? I mean, here we are today in this age, and we have resources, and we can